Hey folks, Dan Frio here with your closing bell for November 12th, 2024. So mortgage rates, they went up. I told you this morning they were going to go up. So the 30-year fix is now over 7%. But what actually is going on? If you look at the economic calendar, there's nothing. There's CPI, the consumer inflation numbers are coming out tomorrow. On Thursday, we have initial jobless claims and the producer inflation numbers. And then on Friday, there's really just retail sales. So there's no really meat on the bone here to make mortgage rates jump as they did, other than tariffs. Now, tariffs are back in the talks. Fed officials are trying to weigh that to see, is it inflationary? Is it inflationary long-term, short-term? What is it? So I'm going to let Steve Leisman kind of dig into it, but we had Kashkarian. He's one of the Fed officials, and he came out today basically kind of leaving some room for, I guess, interpretation, put it that way. So let's get over to Steve Leisman, but here's what the MBS market did today. It's minus 58. I'll go over that in 1 second, but let's get to Steve and what Kashkarian said today that might have just spooked the markets.
Welcome back. We've got some Fed speak to tell you about. Let's get to Steve Leisman with those details. Steve?
Hey, Kelly. Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari saying the Fed will not really consider or model the policies of the president-elect until they become clear. He calls tariffs a one-time price change and not inflationary in the first round. But he then goes on to say that tariff inflation, the effects of tariffs on inflation depends on whether other countries retaliate, and you get into a back and forth on that. That has a longer-term inflationary effect. He expects the strong labor market and the economy to continue to be strong over time, and he says consumer spending continues to surprise to the upside. If inflation surprises to the upside, he said that's the one thing that could give the Fed pause in cutting in December. So he's sort of backing into the idea that he doesn't expect the Fed to cut in December. He said he doesn't expect a big surprise from the labor market. More on the inflation side is where a surprise would come from. Goes on to discuss this idea of the neutral rate and where will it settle, because that's the big question. He suggests it may have gone up, at least in the short run, talks about the possibility of higher productivity remaining, and that could mean a higher neutral rate. However, he goes on to say we all agree we're above neutral now, as in the Fed is restrictive and does need to come down, but doesn't say where, not saying we're close to neutral right now, so he does see scope to reduce the rate. Have to wait until he says we get whatever's enacted by Congress or in the executive branch before figuring out how fiscal policy will affect the Fed. Some move in short-run expectations on inflation, but not in the long run, he says. The Fed is modestly restrictive. And finally, the bar for stopping balance sheet runoff is quite high. And one other thing, Kelly asked about this idea of potential presidential interference in Fed policy. He says he's confident the Fed will focus on its economic goals and not respond to pressure from Washington. Kelly?
So what he was saying is tariffs. They're not inflationary on their first round, but then it's, how are other countries going to retaliate? So let me explain it this way. Let's say, for example, China's going to dump their EV cars on us because they have millions of them they just can't sell. So they dump it on the U.S. It really reduced prices. Okay, so people run out and buy those things. Well, it's taking away from our economy. It's taking away from our production. It's taking away from U.S. jobs and manufacturing and so forth there. But then he says, well, how's the other countries going to retaliate? So are we throwing tariffs on China and Mexico and all these other places? Are they going to then throw tariffs on our goods and services? That is the tricky part of these negotiations. So only time's going to tell, but they say the consumer's still in pretty good shapes. So that's basically the gist of it. They just don't know where they're going to go from there. But it was interesting how he said the jobs report isn't the number one focus now. It's the rekindling of inflation. So we're going to watch how future Fed officials are coming out in the next, say, couple weeks on what their take is on the market, especially inflation and the jobs reports numbers. So what you're seeing right now in the markets is the bond MBS market is down 58 ticks. So this is what mortgage rates are created from. This is a bond that trades on Wall Street. You might even have it in your portfolio because people use this as an asset. So what happens here is we're focusing in on the price of a bond. Right up at the top, it says 98.93. It is down 58 ticks. So what that means is the price of a bond, the mortgage bond, is actually down 58 ticks. That means the yield is up. So how this works is the bond price and the yields are inverse. They're kind of flip-flop. So if the prices are going down, rates are going up. If the prices are going up, rates are coming down. And then the gist of how big that move is basically how big this number is up through there. So a down market on this basically means mortgage rates are going up, and you see that right through here. They're up 10 basis points on the 30-year fixed right now based on that information. The equity markets right now, they kind of took it on the chin as well. I think a lot of profit taking. Dow falls more than 350 points, retreating from a record as post-election rally takes a little bit of a breather. So we're seeing a breather all across the board up through there. There's red across the board. Good thing is on the VIX, there's red. That means the markets are kind of calm right now. Cryptocurrency is up at 88,245. I did a kind of about a 15-20 minute video this afternoon on how I invest in Bitcoin, just to show you guys some thoughts behind that. Oil, let's see what oil is down oil $67. That's going to be huge for inflation. So basically the markets are down, but the areas that we're looking at, oil, cryptocurrencies, and other areas, they're not doing so bad. So now, who's our special guest for tomorrow? My buddy Jaspreet. So Jaspreet, I've been following him actually my kids were following him about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I started reaching out to him, and I was diligent. I kept reaching out, and then finally after about 2, 3 years, he responded. He's like, Dan, let's do this. So he's been on my channel several times over the last few years. He's a friend of the channel, and he provides tons of information. So check us out tomorrow. He'll be on our live event at 2:30 Central Time. We're going to talk about basically the stock market, the equity markets, the real estate markets, the Fed, interest rates, mortgage rates, and where maybe real estate's going in 2025. So join us tomorrow at 2:30 on our live event where you can ask Jaspreet's questions as well as we're going to be asking him as well. So to find out more about what I do, you guys might not even know what I do. I'm actually a mortgage loan officer. I'm licensed in all 50 states. Yep, all 50, as well as Puerto Rico. So if you're out there trying to buy that first house, maybe looking to refinance, we had a young man call me today. He's at 775 on a 30-year fixed, even on an FHA loan. So the FHA Streamline right now, he can probably reduce his rate over 1 full %, saving him a lot of money. So if you're in that category, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. So you might go to the rateupdate.com. Here's our website. If you're looking to buy your first house, please check out the Grant Finder programs right up through here that we handpicked. But otherwise, if you want to get rolling on this thing, just hit the apply now button. Or what I would do is I'd scroll right down through here and give us a call. Our phone number is right down below, 844-775-5626, or you can reach me personally at dan@therateupdate.com. So thanks so much for watching, guys. God bless. Have a fantastic evening. Be safe out there, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.